So one of the sons of Gideon, his name is Abimelech, and after Gideon had died, Gideon had 70 sons, which is kind of nuts in and of itself, but he kind of says, well, I'm going to now take over, I'm going to be the leader. And so the way that he goes about gaining his leadership is he puts all of his brothers to death. Literally, he murders all of his brothers so that he can become the king. And this is how Judges chapter 9 starts out. And as I was reading through it and kind of preparing for this message, I kept thinking, where's the hope? Where's the hope? Where's the encouragement in Judges chapter 9? What am I going to teach on in this? And honestly, it's just not there. This chapter is all about Abimelech's selfish ambition and violence, and how that led to a lot of retribution and a lot of death. And Abimelech basically, he murders his brothers to become the king, and one of them actually escaped. His name is Jotham. He was the youngest one, and he shares a parable with everyone about Abimelech. And the parable is about 4 different trees. There's an olive tree, a fig tree, a vine, and a thorn bush. And it's about which of these trees is going to kind of rise up and rule over the other trees. And ultimately, the thorn bush kind of becomes the leader and creates all this destruction, and then eventually itself is destroyed. And it's a parable basically about what happens next. So after Abimelech has ruled and governed in Israel for about 3 years, it says in verses 23 and 24 that God stirred up animosity and hatred among the people towards Abimelech because of Abimelech's sin. So this one guy, his name is Gaal, and he rose to power, and he basically says, hey, look, we don't need this Abimelech guy. Let's get rid of him, let's revolt, and let's go to battle with Abimelech. And so Abimelech brings the whole army, and he basically opens up a can of whoop up on them, and he comes in, he just starts killing everybody. He destroys the entire town, and the few people that are left, there's about 1,000 men and women that are left, they go hide in this temple that they had built for this idol that they were worshiping. So idol worship is back in Israel again. And they're hiding in this temple, and Abimelech comes and basically just sets fire to the whole thing and burns it to the ground with 1,000 men and women inside of it. And he continues this violent rampage. He goes to the next town and he starts attacking it. Everybody starts hiding in a tower, and he's like, I'm going to burn this thing to the ground too. And so he goes to burn it, and a woman throws a millstone off the top, and it hits him in the head, and he's almost dead. And he asks his servant, hey, will you run me through with a sword to kind of finish me off so that no one will say that I was killed by a woman? And so just as Jotham's parable, maybe prophecy, right, predicted Abimelech's selfish ambition and the violence that he led with, that it would lead to a lot of retribution, repayment, and death. It happened. And like I said, in Judges chapter 9, there's not a lot of hope. There's not a lot of encouragement. But it seems like Judges 9 is actually written hopeless on purpose. You see, in the book of Judges, there's this cycle that continually happens where basically, Israel sins, usually worshiping idols, and then God raises up a judge or a deliverer, and then that judge or deliverer basically comes in and saves Israel, sets them free, and they turn back to God, and then there's peace in Israel for a long time. But in Judges 9, we see that there is no judge, there is no deliverer, there is no victory. It's just a giant spiral of sin and chaos. And I think that this is a good picture of what happens when we as humans try to rule over other humans without God. Leaders become self-promoting, power-hungry, violent, and honestly, it just leads to a lot more sin and death. In all of this wickedness and evil, though, something that I see in Judges 9 is that God is at work delivering justice, right? So Abimelech sinned, the people of Israel sinned, and as a result, there was a lot of death and pain because of it. And so God is at work delivering justice. In verse 56 and 57, it says, "Thus God repaid the wickedness of Abimelech." And it goes on, it says, "The people of Shechem paid for all their wickedness." And so God is at work delivering justice. Even though there is no godly leader, God is at work administering justice because God is just. And in all of the wickedness that I see in Judges chapter 9, and even in our world today, all the wickedness that we see, something that it reminds me of, and I want to try to encourage you with this, is that when you see wickedness happening in our world, let it remind you of our desperate need for a deliverer, for a judge, for a savior. And remember, his name is Jesus.